Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Security Squawk podcast. It's the show where we take cybersecurity stories in the news that everybody's kind of talking about and reacting to, and we break down what they actually mean for people running businesses. If you don't know, I'm Brian. Here with me today are Randy and Andre. Andre, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, doing good, man. Sunny South Florida. I'm about steps away from the beach right now, doing a client visit.
You're not going to go to the beach, though, are you? Because it's like 50 there, right?
Yeah, it's 57. I was going to do a surprise beach podcast, but it was too windy for me, and I didn't want to get cold.
Yeah, you know, Brian, we always talk about the weather kicking off the show. It's 20 stinking degrees down here in Texas. We don't know how to act, man. It only gets this way like once every maybe 4 years down here where we live.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Weather sucks, period. I've been shoveling snow for 2 days, so it's all good. All right. So, guys, we got another familiar feel to the week this week in this show. We got some big names, some serious exposures, and a lot of stuff going on out there that really doesn't slow down attackers one bit, right, guys? Companies are doing things, but it doesn't seem like they're doing enough. And we're going to expose these stories because they don't seem to be hitting the news like they probably should based on what's going out there in the world. Cyber attacks doesn't really rise to the level of maybe what the regular news or what the news outlets that you see every day pick up. So pay attention to this show because we bring you what's happening out there in the real world of businesses and what you need to be paying attention to because cyber criminals aren't slowing down, and the show is going to expose some serious breaches to some serious companies that should have some serious dough to do something about this stuff. So throughout this show, guys, I think we're going to hear what we're going to say. What we're going to hear is like investigating claims, right? That's what the theme of this show is going to be, and all the stories we're going to talk about. They're all investigating claims of a breach. So, we're going to talk about what that means, what we know, and get into like why we're learning of stories like this now versus how we used to learn about stories where it seemed like a company was like ransomware or shut down. Like, what has changed and why do we kind of find this stuff out on the heels of what actually happened instead of maybe before or during an event? So, Randy, let's dig in. Let's start with your story as we talk about one of those investigating stories. Hackers are auctioning off 860 gigabytes of source code stolen from Target's development servers. They're not threatening to leak it. They're not teasing screenshots. They're auctioning it. So this wasn't customer data. This was development infrastructure, internal tools, build systems, things companies still treat as low risk because they're not production. So walk us through what they actually took in detail and why this should scare more people than it does.
Yeah, so most of what you just said is what happened. Here's the deal, though. This was stuff stolen from a development server. And so typically what happens when companies are developing software for internal use or to sell or whatever, they typically have a development server or development platform, and then they get it all together and then they roll it out onto something that's maybe more secured. The downside of that is often they don't want a bunch of security controls and things like that on the development server. And so what happened here was the bad guys were able to get into that developer server and steal about 860 gigabytes of data, which this guys could be, you know, it's something we talk about sometimes, the gift that keeps giving, where there's something in the news for a long time. This could end up being one of those, because we're talking source code for some of their gift card stuff, some of their other platforms. We're also talking about personal information of developers, URLs for where different things sit. The way that they go from development to production, and their basically their process for that's been revealed. All kinds of internal links to important data here and there, all that's been revealed. This could be really, really bad, and we're not exactly sure how this started, but my little AI that I used to do the research for these things was able to make a connection potentially between something that happened to them in late September 2025. I don't know if that has anything to do with this or not, if that's how the bad guys got in, or if they were just working on a server. It's basically a version of a Git, which is like a GitHub. It's where you post code, you post updates to code. Or, you know, we don't know if it was, you know, they were in some other way, or if they were this server, because typically development servers are lower security, if they were able to get in that way. And it really, there's a couple things that really, really stand out for me on this, Brian. Is one, I think about when the source code was stolen for Microsoft Exchange and how that keeps popping up. It popped up for years, where, you know, they found this or they found that. So now the bad guys will be able to take this source code, run it through their chat GPT, their bad GPT, or whatever they call it, and find vulnerabilities in the source code, and then use those to basically get into the system, maybe get into their live system. They're also, from what I read, possibly APIs. An API is like a behind the scenes link to a computer with a really long, basically, username and password. That's not what they call them, but that's basically what it is. And both of them are very, very long, typically. Sometimes it's just one. But looks like that was probably revealed as well. There might be some data that they ran through the system to test it, which could actually be production data that they hadn't basically cleaned yet. Lot of stuff here that could be really, really bad for Target. And this made me think of, one, just small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses in general that have valuable IP. Your valuable IP needs to be protected. It's very important, whether that's a sales process, whether that's apps you have developed, whether that's your client list, your product stack, whatever it is, your valuable IP, which is intellectual property, has to be protected. And in this case, we need to keep our eye on this. We're going to see this a lot over the next few years, most likely. Now, Target is saying, probably should have said this first, Target is saying, and they're denying it, but the evidence the bad guys are showing to show it's real is pretty damning. So it looks real. And at the same time, we know that Target locked down their development server. They locked it down big time once this, right before this came out. So most likely this is real, but there is a chance this could all just be a bluff. But, you know, I don't see that, but we'll see. So that's basically the gist of what's going on.
Well, my thing is, the key word is they're putting in this title article is auctioning. So if they're auctioning, that tells me that conversations with Target were already had, and Target basically said, do whatever you want, we're not going to pay you. And now they're just going for the highest bidder. So that's one thing I saw. Or maybe Target is saying, you know what you have is things that are not necessarily that important, and you're not going to be able to go far with it. So go pound on sand and do, see if you can find somebody, but we're not going to help you. The second thing I wanted to talk about is I'm curious to know how did this happen? Was it like you mentioned, someone's compromised? Like, was a computer compromised? Was it some type of insider, maybe a rogue employee decided to just copy and paste and just sell this information? So that's going to also be interesting to see of how this happened, because how do you have, when you have that much data, and like you said, if you're a small business and you have that much data, of course, you never want to give one person the keys to the kingdom to have access to all of this, but how do you control this? So that's going to be also interesting to see, is like how it happened.
Yeah, I read in one of the places where I was doing the research, I read that they had shut down VPN access to the server. And what that means is VPNs allow remote developers to connect to the server. They could even be in the same city. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily like overseas or whatever. Could even be in potentially different parts of the building. I don't know. But apparently they shut that down. So if they shut that down, maybe there was some VPN credentials that were, somebody's got a Fitbit and they've got a username and a password, and, the bad guys just basically figure that out and then use that to try a VPN. And then, like we've said before, man, once they get access to that VPN, they can just sit there and start gathering intel. And maybe that was how they got in,
And we always see with VPN, no two-form factor authentication, right?
Yeah, we don't, and we just don't know yet. But you're probably onto something there based on other things that we've seen. Maybe credentials or employee names were stolen from the thing that happened in late September. And maybe that's what gave them, hey, a list of developers, and they could start looking out on the internet. Oh, look, Johnny Smith's, who's a developer, his Fitbit password is, Bright Spring 2008 with a hashtag. You know what I mean? Let's try that on the VPN, and then boom, it works. So you're good point there. That could be potentially what happened.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a major part that executives, I believe, still underestimate. Source code, it doesn't create immediate headlines, but it makes every future attack cheaper, faster, and way harder to detect. So you guys hit all the points, all the nails on the head when it comes to this stuff. Targets, who knows what the future may hold when it comes to this stuff. But it's something that you need to pay attention to, especially if you do things like develop software or create software. And I think, as we move into AI, guys, I think every business is going to be forced to be in that world where they're creating something, software, right?
Mm-hmm.
To solve a problem,
Yep.
to do something that like people are having a hard, like, I don't think people really understand. Like, think about it. Like if something as simple as like, hey, this application isn't talking to this application, like now you have to go find the software developer and go get somebody to build that for you. In the very near future, and within 5 years, the workforce is going to change to where they just go to AI to get these things to work together. And it's going to be things where you have this stuff sitting around in your network just because AI created it for you. And if you're not aware that that's what's going on and this is what is existing in your network, I think that's why we're talking about this today, because you have this here and it's going to be a bigger problem for more companies as we move into this new world of AI.
Yep.
All right, Andre, you ready, buddy?
I'm ready.
Time to bring in your topic here, sir, which is it actually fits perfectly with where we're going with the show, as we have an unprotected database that exposed roughly 48 million Gmail records and over 6 million Instagram records sitting online, unsecured, no authentication, no encryption. So with that said, it wasn't sophisticated. It wasn't a 0-day exploit. It was data left out in the open. So Andre, walk us through what was exposed and how something like this can still happen in 2026.
Yeah, this is amazing. I'm going to just go down the list real quick. Gmail, 48 million, Yahoo, 4 million. These are basically affected. These are platforms where they're basically saying they have some type of information, username, password, etc. So Gmail, 48 million, Yahoo, 4 million, Outlook, 1.5 million, Facebook, 17 million, Instagram, 6.5 million, TikTok, 780,000, Netflix, 3.4 million, and OnlyFans, 100,000. We know there's more than that in OnlyFans. And then even some government domains as well. So this is not a case of where, someone, this isn't like saying that these companies necessarily got compromised. This is saying that users, so maybe someone's computer had a malware that was stealing passwords, session tokens. It could have even had keystroke software on the computer where it was taking that information. And think of it as like a bad guy stealing all of this, TVs and, things that bad guys want, putting it in a warehouse, and anybody can just kind of go and see what the bad guy is storing. It's the same, analogy, but in this case, it's on the digital side. And that it was surprising because, as you mentioned, it's just basically publicly accessible. Anybody can just go and be able to now see this entire database. And what's the scary part is that most of the people don't even know that their information is out there. And this is kind of now just showing like a behind the curtains of how the bad guys operate and how they have all of this information to now, like you said, put it in that GPT or sell it in auctions or whatever the case is. So this is, again, not necessarily that Gmail, Yahoo, Facebook, et cetera, got breached. This is most likely on the internal system of the user, that they had some type of malware, and then all of this now just went into this one huge database.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This is one of those quiet failures that nobody wants to talk about. So, we're in those situations again. No ransom note, no countdown clock, no pressure, just massive exposure because basic controls weren't there. So, Randy, I'm going to kick it over to you. From what you see out there, this open database stuff, accidental or not, it's real. It's a real threat. Companies keep doing it. What's going on?
I mean, this particular one. So the number. So the person found it, and it took a month ish, possibly longer, to get the person that found it started reporting it before the company that was responsible for hosting it finally shut it down and blocked it off. It took about a month, and during that month, the number of records actually grew. So it was actively being used. So the number of records actually grew. So this is a big deal. And this looks like, Andre, that it was basically a bad guy's repository. And if one bad guy, organization, whatever, is putting stuff into this, then most likely other bad guys are pulling stuff out of it at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to sit around and wait till they get to 150 million before they sell it. This was probably somebody somewhere was using this as part of, and sure, I'm certainly certain they had a backup of it. So yeah, we shut it down, but they're going to pop it up somewhere else. But this is it's a very real issue.
And it kind of shows how, these cyber criminals, they're moving fast, they're a little sloppy, they may not even be that technical inclined, because you would think they at least, password protected or do something, but they just left it open, just like how, users leave things open. But this is just a reminder, when you're listening to this podcast, what should you do? So imagine your Gmail, your Yahoo, your Instagram, your OnlyFans. Now that information is out there, make sure you're not using the same, sorry, it's funny, Brian. Make sure that you're not using the same password for all of your sites. Use a password manager, and then again, two-form factor authentication.
We're going to kick it over to some comments here in a second. But yeah, I mean, this should be the scary part to everybody who's out there who doesn't really understand this stuff, right? a lot of breaches aren't actually attacks. They're somebody discovering something as they're going through their day or whatever. Like if they're out there looking and they come across it and they really didn't have to do a whole lot to get access to it, right? So, breaches like this, you have to remember all those security tools that you're investing in is kind of what I talked about at the top of the show. Doesn't matter. Like these things are not set up to trigger alerts if they're just sitting out there like this, right, guys? So it doesn't trip EDR, it doesn't activate your team. So if you're not actively checking or you have somebody out there who's looking for this stuff, you don't know, and it becomes a massive risk. So guys, let's throw it over to some of the comments. I think this came in at the last segment there with Randy's article, with Dollars of Donuts. It was a scam hire and they gave the PIM to the wrong guy. A couple other comments. It's a common attack to use AI to fake hire. So essentially, deep fake is a real next level threat. So insinuating that the target hack was an inside hire job there, I guess. And then another comment here, solution, phishing resistant MFA for what you were talking about there, Randy. Thoughts there, guys, on any of those?
Yeah, that's a great the last comment about the phishing resistant MFA. Basically what that means is it's an MFA that's tied to a known device. I'm not going to get into the super technical, but it's tied usually to a biometric, or it's tied to an actual like a physical key. But the reality is it's harder with that. Harder to get in. At the same time, though, we've seen even when there's phishing resistant MFA, we've seen these annoying recurring MFA attempts, and they'll pop up on the machine. And maybe you got to do a biometric or whatever, but they'll pop up on the machine on your phone or whatever, and people get them all night long. And I remember a hack a few years ago where somebody actually clicked on one. But that's why they say resistant and not phishing proof. But it's just making it a little harder to do the MFA. So a lot of good comments here today.
Yes, sir.
I would love to see, all of these companies we mentioned have security researchers, right? So Google, Yahoo, everybody like that. I would have loved to, and maybe it is happening, but what I would expect from these companies, if they know that their customers, even if it's a free Gmail account, doesn't matter, but if they know that their customers' data is out there and they have access to this repository, I would say send out an email saying, hey, look, we found your information, or force a reset of the password or something, and just be proactive, even though it's not necessarily their responsibility. But I do think that they have some type of responsibility in at least just being a little proactive and helping their users help themselves.
So good point, Andre. So let's kick it over to, I'm going to go a little rapid fire here and try to get through this as quick as we can, but I'm bringing kind of 3 different articles that highlight kind of the same thing here about these different companies investigating these claims by groups who are either hitting them with ransomware or breaching them in some way. And we can talk about why this is happening, guys. And we've seen this before with big companies and claims that they've been hit, but it might not be them directly. It might be a subsidiary or a smaller company vendor that they work with. But the first one up is Nike. Nike says it's investigating claims from the WorldLeak ransomware group, guys, which says it stole internal Nike data and plans to release it. Nike hasn't confirmed the specifics yet. But that's standard language from what we see today early on when they don't really know what's going on. But it's also part of the problem. These groups don't need to bluff anymore, right? Their leverage is credibility. And when they say they have the data, history says they usually do.
Mm-hmm.
So when companies go quiet during investigations like this, what does that silence really protect? What are your guys' thoughts there?
I'm not sure. So like in this case, it seems to be maybe that it was related to Salesforce again.
Right.
Which that's one of those things that we've been seeing for like what now, like several months, over and over and over. It's pretty crazy.
Why do these companies keep choosing to go dark when this stuff happens? Like we find out
Um,
more from the cyber criminals than we do about these companies. These companies, like, this isn't like this company doesn't know this is going on, right? Internally, they are working to figure out what the heck is going on, how this happened. There's people losing sleep at night, right? That's the side of this we don't see, right? So why do they choose to act like this isn't going on
I,
and they're not more forthcoming? Like, do
if
do attackers lose leverage when these companies don't come out, or does this silence usually help them?
I think, Brian, that they're doing what their lawyers are telling them to do, and their lawyers are making calculated risks. Like, okay, if we do this plus we're transparent, this happens, or if we do this and we're tight-lipped, this happens. And yeah, this is worse, but losing consumer confidence when we're transparent. I don't know. I wonder, and I bet it's something like that, some kind of discussion like that that's going on. It doesn't seem to make sense though, because it's not a matter of when, it's not a matter of if you're going to get hit. It's just a matter of when, and
Mm-hmm.
how you deal with it matters. So I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with that. Maybe it's their lawyers or their insurance saying that that's the better play here, than just being open and honest about it, which maybe not be what's going on here, but I know that's driving lots of laws and lots
Mm-hmm.
of regulations forcing companies. Because you're right, your average bloke whose name's involved in here and doesn't know that his or her password's been stolen and this and that now falls victim to a phishing scam or something. The
Right.
average bloke is going to pay for this if they're tight-lipped about it.
Right. You just bought shoes from Nike, and you get some kind of email or text, when you don't know this is going on. That gives more leverage to the attackers, right? And from they can attack your customers, but they can also threaten to attack your customers and put more pressure on you, right? Hey, we're going to go start doing this to your customers if you don't pay us, right? That's what's going on out there, and that's the scary part when people don't understand that. Like, it really is a matter of like hours between whether or not your data gets exposed or not. Based on how these executives make these decisions when they're negotiating with these different groups, right? And as we know, guys, if one company is getting attacked in an industry, another company seems to get attacked. And that's happening simply because, as maybe Randy alluded to, now I don't know the details of this one, but it could be the Salesforce related, and they key on the same vulnerability. If they know Nike and Under Armour are using the same technology and they know there's vulnerabilities, they're going to go after it. And Everest ransomware group, a different group, claims to have stolen over 300 gigabytes of data, and about 72 million user records are now appearing already in breach databases. Under Armour has yet to confirm the breach, but here's the problem, guys. Independent breach trackers already have the data. That means customer data is already exposed, whether the company wants to confirm it or not. So at what point does we haven't confirmed stop being reasonable and start becoming a leadership failure? Like, I get it, Randy. I 100% agree with you, dude, because this is exactly how ransomware 1.5 played out, when they were actually still encrypting the files, and the lawyers started to get involved and started to advise companies, and it started to slow the process down for the attackers to the point where they didn't like it. So they pivoted quickly away from that, and they will pivot again. If lawyers start giving bad advice that causes them to not get paid as quickly as they want to get paid, they will pivot and they will do other things. And the lawyers are so far behind what these guys are doing and the advice that they're giving, that is a massive part of the problem. And I think that's what you were trying to say earlier, Randy, but just a lot nicer.
Yeah, and this just shows how these companies care about their bottom line more than they care about their own customers and the responsibility of protecting the data that their customers have inputted into their systems. A couple of weeks ago, there was, I forgot what article it was, but we were talking about, and this happens all the time, where you go on the company's website and there's nothing about the data breach. There's nothing about like, hey guys, we had this incident, maybe or maybe not, but just in case, look out for any type of phishing emails. Nothing about that. And I guess they just, like I said, they just care more about their bottom line. They know that the lawsuits are gonna come, and the more they put in writing about their leadership failures, the more the opposing counsel is going to be able to use that against them to be like, look, you even said it. So I think that's why they have to also just be careful about what they say, because they know lawsuits are going to be coming, around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, any last thoughts on that one before we move to my final kind of rapid fire here, which is this gas station?
Texas.
Yes, sir. Ransomware attack on a major gas station chain. So this is 3 ransomware attacks on 3 major companies that most people probably haven't heard about. Now, I don't know, guys. It's kind of weird to me that we're not hearing about this stuff. And it's, I would consider this pretty prevalent. And these aren't the only ransomware attacks that are happening. So what's going on out there? Why isn't it getting the press that it deserves? That might be another topic for another show. And why is this stuff getting buried? Again, it seems like the host country and us are turning a blind eye to what's going on out there with cyber criminals. A ransomware attack on a major gas station chain exposed social security numbers for hundreds of thousands of people. That data enables identity theft right there, guys. Social security numbers. So what is going on here with all this data theft and stealing of customer information? Because what happens when cybersecurity, again, I think we're in that spot where all this is all happening because cybersecurity is relegated to an IT issue instead of a C-suite business risk issue. And that's why we have social security numbers out there and all this data being exposed. We got Under Armour data already on Have I Been Pawned. I mean, if it's there, it's everywhere, right, Randy? I mean, that's like the bottom of the barrel website. If it gets there, then like it's everywhere. I mean, because we have other tools that find stuff way before that website. So just thoughts there, like what's going on, and these are 3 major attacks in the last week that I don't know. I didn't hear about them until I did research for the show.
The crazy thing, Brian. So there's going to be more that's going to come out of this, okay? Potentially, because the article is based on a basically where they had to report to the state of Maine about a breach. That's where a lot of the info for this article comes from. This happened in Texas. Texas has breach laws. Texas has this. It's a big deal here. We were one of the first states to pass this. I don't know if they've already done it here. Maybe Texas doesn't make this public. I don't know the details there, but it's really odd that this is coming through Maine and not through the Texas Attorney General's office. And it makes me wonder if this company's got some more explaining to do. I don't know. Also, it says in the article that they basically restored from known good backups. And what that says to me, once again, I don't know the deets. I'm just reading between the lines. What that says to me was either they negotiated, negotiations failed, or they chose not to negotiate and said, customer data, who cares that it's all been released? This is going to have a trail that follows it. It's going to be a trail of have they reported in Texas where they're based, and then a trail of lawsuits because they chose to just restore from the data and not pay the ransom or not negotiate or whatever that they did. I think there's going to be more that's going to come out of this over the next probably 18 months.
And Brian, to answer your question of why aren't we hearing about it, I think, I think the consumer's numb. It's already, everybody gets the fake phishing emails, the text messages, and everything like that. And it's just like we already know our data's out there. And then, of course, it hasn't been a slow news week, right? In all of the other politics and world things that's happening. So it's just that, the news is going to not really get viewers from these type of articles. But if it was a slow news week, then yeah, definitely, I'm sure where Andy turns on the 6 o'clock news, that this gas station would have been front and center. But right now, nobody cares.
I've not been able to do that in like 20 years, man. Watch the 6 o'clock news. And this is such a great point from Anthony Webb. Why is a convenience store holding social security numbers? Why do they have the personal data of 377,000 people? Maybe there was some sort of rewards thing that people could sign up for. I don't know, but using
it's usually in these cases, definitely, number one, if you have employees, you're going to have this stuff now.
There's only 150 stores.
Correct.
So,
but if they've been in business for 40 years, they could have that many social security numbers. And, obviously maybe half of them are dead people, but, it could be all employees, contractors, right? From legacy kind of back office systems for things like payroll and, ARAP, benefits, background checks. Could also be, like you said, rewards programs, or maybe they have a credit card, like a store credit card, gas card type of thing, and they're collecting people's social security numbers that way as well.
To get like a credit report on them.
Yeah, a gas card. Yeah, right. There's lots of gas that companies have their own cards, right? Don't know.
You shouldn't be holding on to that stuff.
Absolutely. Quite frankly, if you are going to be doing that stuff, you should just handle it. Let a third party handle all that, like a bank, and don't try to be your own bank, so to speak, right? So that's my thought. So, yeah, absolutely. Good comment there. Data governance, bad management, absolutely. Again, this is where I say, these things become an IT issue and not a C-suite issue, right? And that's what happens when it's an IT issue. The stuff gets missed, the risk gets missed. The IT guys do their stuff, what they think they're doing right, they make it work, and they back it up, hopefully. But that doesn't mean it was properly handled from a governance standpoint, all right? And that is bad management. Sure is. Good input there from Anthony Webb. I appreciate the support. If you want to support the show, guys, you can help us out. You can support the show directly at buymeacoffee.com/Security Squawk. We don't bring on sponsors. We get asked all the time to bring people on, to interview them. This isn't an interview style podcast. We don't bring guests on so they can promote their products. If there is a product that the three of us like, we will that we use and we recommend, we're obviously going to talk about it on the show. Other than that, we keep this show ad-free, sponsor-free, and we're going to bring it in. You guys have anything else you want to discuss before we wrap it up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one. I just remembered it after we talked about the gas card. So I was at a flight from a conference last week, and I was on a commercial flight, and the stewardess basically was trying to advertise the credit card of this airline. And someone, I guess, prior to the flight took one, but they didn't fill it out. I guess they took the little, how they hand it out and say, fill out. So I was just curious. So I opened it, and it was basically like your old school, fill out your name, your social, your driver license and stuff like that. And I was still surprised. Obviously, when they're offering this, it's the middle of the air. There's not good internet reception. They're trying to capture it because I guess they're trying to give out the points and make people do like an emotional buy right then and there. But just imagine something like that. Maybe this person did fill out their information. They left their social, or you just have a rogue employee that collects, 15 of them, but only turns in 10, keeps 5, and then takes all of the identity theft. So I think we got to think of, or we as a society have to think of better ways of protecting the consumer's information.
Yeah, at the end of the day, consumers need to kind of take that in their own hands as well and understand what you do. You would never fill that out and leave that behind. Most of those, most of those come with like a QR code or a website that you can go to on your phone anyway. I would just take that option, like scan the QR code and do the application on your phone or on your computer at a later time. And, you know, you don't have to fall for the pressure of doing it on the plane, you know, to get the extra bonus points. The bonus points will be there if you do it on your phone too. So, but food for thought there. Let's wrap it up, guys. This week wasn't about, you know, elite hackers or exotic exploits. I don't think any of our shows for the last 2 months have been that. It was about exposure, hesitation, and basic failures that keep repeating. So this week we talked about dev systems that were left open, databases exposed with no protection, and data stolen before companies could even admit it. So if you're running a business, remember this: if attackers get data, assume it will be sold. If it's exposed, assume someone already copied it. And if your response is silence, the people paying the price aren't the attackers. So remember that. This episode helped. Hit subscribe, share it, leave a review. Remember to support us at buymeacoffee.com. So that's Security Squawk for Randy, Andre, and we will see you next week. Stay safe. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.